Hello, this is Bryce King, and this is my video for Chapter 7 and 8, talking about gifted education and tracking students. I just want to apologize up front that I kind of have a head cold. Over the last couple of days, I was able to attend the Nebraska Gifted Conference in Omaha, and I always find it very interesting to go because you learn many different new things. As the elementary high ability coordinator, I always seem to take back a lot of things that are new that raise a lot of questions or discussions that I know we need to have at the district level. Referring to tracking students and grouping them according to ability, I find that there are some benefits in doing that. However, there are some cons that I believe in. Some of the pros is that those students that are at the lower, the middle, or the high level, those students in those particular groups, and I'm just going to say, go with the high group, that the students in that area are going to understand those peers that are around them that are within that group, and they're going to understand and use more academic language. They can also be more motivated to continue learning because they see that the other students in their group are just as motivated and want to learn new things. However, I do feel that with those groups that they can feel a lot of pressure and that they can't make a lot of mistakes. Another con that I see is, if grouped within those levels, and I'm talking about the high students here, that if they're in that group, they're going to learn to work with those mindsets that are within that group, and they're going to develop a kind of an attitude, I guess is what you could call it. And when they go to start working with peers in a different level that aren't using the same academic language or not at that same learning level, they're going to become frustrated and they're not going to be able to help. And same thing with that other student that the high ability learner is helping, is that they're going to feel incompetent, and their I guess confidence might go down, that they're not on the same level and that I can't work with this person, and it kind of can hurt a lot of feelings. To the question of, do you agree or disagree with leaving gifted students behind? And one of the presenters at the conference I spoke with when she was done, and it was Dr. Ruth Rogers, and she is a high ability consultant in Colorado. And I asked her the same question, and she said, she actually advised me to check out No Child Left Board, and she said that once the No Child Left Behind kind of came into play, a lot of the attention towards high ability learners kind of went away. We spent a lot of time focusing on our lower achievers. And a colleague of mine actually that went with me to the conference, and this was his first time doing it, he kind of said, anytime we go to a conference or a workshop, we talk about reaching those students at a lower achieving level, and we kind of put those high achievers into the back of our minds thinking, okay, they'll be all right, we just need to push them a little bit harder. Well, that's not really the answer, because it's kind of like the video that we were supposed to watch on the 10 myths. If you have an athlete that has all these skills and is really great, but you kind of push them aside and don't motivate them to do anything, they're gonna reach that plateau, and they're just gonna stay at that same level. And as a coach, I've actually seen that as well. So in conclusion, I guess I believe that gifted education is something that we need to continue to look at and build upon. As the elementary high ability coordinator for our district, this last year we gained almost 20 new students because of our identification process. And now in the state of Nebraska, there's no set identification process. It's kind of left up to the school district of how they feel. We use standardized tests, and we also look at our NISA data. And the reason that we use the NISA data more as kind of an identifier is because of the fact that it's consistent between third, fourth, and fifth, and on up. Before we used to use our Stanford 10, well, they didn't take it in the fifth grade. Now that we've transitioned to map testing, that's going to be a huge help in our identification process. And within our program, if you look at our student population, another thing that was brought up at our conference was the bright versus the gifted. And if after listening to that presentation, I kind of look at our numbers and who we have involved in our high ability learner education program, I see some of those bright students that are more self-disciplined, and than some that are truly gifted. But I kind of felt like our initial identification process that we used when we first kind of started the program or piloted it, that we had our expectations set very, very high, that we were not reaching those students that were kind of on that were kind of on the fence of the gifted or the bright. And so that's kind of why we went with looking at our data first to identify. I look for that to maybe transition into something different that maybe focuses a little bit more on our gifted, and kind of get the difference between the gifted and the bright. Our program is kind of designed around project-based learning, and for instance, our sixth grade groups right now, they are going to be building catapults, and what they had to do is they had to draw what they pictured in their mind of what a catapult would look like, and with their partner they discussed the different features and how it would work. Then I had them research either a video or pictures of a catapult, and if they found anything different than what they had down originally on their drawing, I had them go back and make any changes that they needed to. Now that their drawing's been approved, we're transitioning into the computer, and they're drawing it using Word with shapes and lines, and I refer it back to, if I'm building a house, I need to know the height of the walls, because if I don't know the exact measurements, how am I going to get my roof line to match up or cover the entire house? So we talk about our planning and how we need to make sure that our design is what we need it to build. And then they'll build their project, and then they'll have other worksheets with observations and predictions and as such as that. So we've kind of designed it around our student population. But again, in conclusion, I do believe that gifted education is something that we need to keep on top of, and I believe tracking and grouping to some extent is good, but you wouldn't want to definitely do it all the time. Thank you for listening.